Hi everyone, welcome to this week's session of the Google Plus Platform Office Hours, the show where we keep you up to date on what's new in the Google Plus platform and field your questions and take your comments about the Google Plus platform. This week we're going to be talking about the Google Plus History API again. Specifically, I'm going to give you a brief overview of what it is, how it works, show you it in action in PHP, and show you something new that we just brewed up. So before we dig into the content, let's do some introductions. I'll start because I'm already talking. Hi, I'm Jenny Murphy. I'm a developer programs engineer here at Google, and I focus on the Google Plus platform, which means I help you build cool stuff with the Google Plus APIs. And next to me in the studio.
Hi, I'm Gus Klass, and I'm a developer advocate on Jenny's team. And I actually am focused as well on the Google Plus History API.
Great. And through the magic of cyberspace, a few people are joining us through the Hangouts. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, starting with you, Abraham.
Hi, I'm a co-founder of a new startup called Advocate, and I've been an active user of Google Plus since the beginning, and I've been having fun playing around with the History API recently.
Great. And how about you next, Alan?
I'm Alan Furstenberg. I'm an independent developer and consultant. I mostly do work with the Hangout API, and I've started to dabble a little bit with the History API.
Fraser?
Hi, my name is Fraser Kane. I'm the publisher of Universe Today, and we've been doing a lot of stuff with the Hangouts and the Hangouts API.
Great. And last but definitely not least, Gerwin.
Hi, I'm Gerwin from Austria. So I've been doing lots of different stuff with the Google Plus APIs and have been playing quite a bit with the History API lately. So, yeah.
Great. So we'll be looping back for questions and comments from everyone. But without further ado, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the History API, which we've discussed before. But I'll give you a quick rundown before I show you the PHP code, just in case you haven't heard of it before. So switching over to my screen share.
And I'll just fire you up. Here we go.
There we go. So widen it. Oh, it doesn't actually help very much. So the Google Plus History API, what is it? It is kind of like the instant upload feature that you may have used on your cell phone with Google Plus. The way instant upload works is as you are hanging out and taking photos with your phone at some exciting party or event you're at, the photos are automatically getting uploaded into a temporary place that only you can access, so that later when you're in a sharing mood, you can return and select which photos you want to share and share them with the right people. The History API is kind of like that, but it's not just for pictures. It's for everything. And it's not just for Google Plus mobile app. It's for whatever your application is. So the way it works is your users are using your application. As they're using your application, no matter what it is, whether it's a Hangout or whether it's an application that tracks your movements as you hike, whether it's a music application that you listen to songs on, or even a blogging platform, anything, different moments happen that make up your user's experience on that application. For example, the hiking application, finding a trail, starting a hike, finding a landmark. As your user uses your application and those moments happen, you write moments to Google in the background using the History API. Then later, when your user finishes using your application, they finish their game, their hike is over, and they've returned home, and they're in a sharing mood, they can go into their history on Google+, select the moments that are most important to them and they think their friends would be most interested in, like maybe finding a really cool waterfall on their hike, and then share them with the right people, because maybe some of their friends don't like waterfalls, only the waterfall circle, for example. And that's what the History API does. It allows your users to share their moments on your application with the right people at the right time. But how does it work in practice? Let's find out. The History API is made up of a few pieces. There's obviously your application, which here is a website, just for example case. There's Google, which hosts the History API. And then there's the target. The target is a little bit special to this API. The target is a publicly accessible web page that represents whatever the target of that moment is. So in the case of the previous example where I was talking about a hiking application, the target might be a page that describes the place you're having a hike, or describes the landmarks that you may find along the way. When your application detects that a moment has occurred, in the hiking example, I've arrived at the trail, it would send a moment to Google. It would insert it using a JSON REST API, very similar to a lot of APIs at Google and a lot of the other Google Plus APIs. And then what Google will do is we will fetch the target page that you refer to in that moment. So the page that represents that trail. And we'll go there and we'll look for schema.org markup, which you may already have from the plus button or for web search or for a lot of reasons. And we'll extract all the details we can from that page and use that to try and make the moments in Google Plus as rich as possible. So that is the History API, what it does, and how it works. So let's dive into some code, because that's what you're here for, right? And we've talked about the History API a little, and we've shown it to you in JavaScript, and we've shown it to you in Python. Today, I'm going to show you how to use it in PHP. So let's take a look at what we are about to build. So, switching over my screen sharing. So if you have developed on, make that a little wider. If you have developed with PHP on Google+, this probably looks pretty familiar. This is the Google+ starter application for PHP. It's a very simple application that shows you the best practices for developing on the Google+ platform. And what I've done is I've added a little write a moment button to the top. It's a very simple implementation. All it does is just write one moment. And I'll show you the code that powers that. So let me shrink this window a little bit so you can see a little more clearly. So this is the code for the PHP starter application with a few little enhancements added. So what have I added? The first thing I've added is I've added a special generated library that the PHP client library uses. This is designed to make it a little bit easier to use the APIs. It's just some convenience methods that show you all the different methods that each API has. The History API is still in developer preview though, so the generated PHP helper functions are not part of the core PHP library yet. But that doesn't mean we haven't started preparing them. So what I did is I went to the source code tree and I went to the trunk and I pulled out the generated convenience class, the helper functions for the PHP library for History API. It's called the API plus a moment service. And we'll be using this further down in the code. So what else did I have to do? I had to create a service object. This is the implementation of that class that I included above, that helper class. We already have one for the Plus API, so just below it I did the exact same syntax except for the History API. And now my PHP starter app can start to make calls to the History API as well as calls to the regular Google Plus APIs. So let's go look at the next change I made. And here's the meat of it. Writing a moment. And this is just how easy it is. So in a few lines of code, so what I'm doing here is in my application I have a little button that I press that indicates that it's time to write a moment. I'm using a hidden field that indicates that a moment is being written, and then I'm writing a moment. And it's actually one line down here that's actually doing the moment insert, and a few lines that build that moment object. So what I did is I just took one of the examples from the Google Plus History API starter, and I reformatted it to work in PHP. So you can see here that the target URL is specified. I picked the macaron, one of my favorite target URLs from my example code, Baking Disasters. And I'm using an add activity straight from the history examples. And I'm setting that target. So it's a little bit different than the JavaScript and Python libraries because they just specify the request body as a big blob of JSON. In PHP, I have to build it using PHP. It's just, different styles, but pretty straightforward. And one other line there, the start date. I'll be talking a little bit more about this once I show you the software in action. But here's the write method. So all it is doing is just calling the history service object that we created on the moments API using the insert method. I'm specifying that I'm inserting a moment for myself, and I'm writing it to the vault, which is where all moments go right now. And then I'm specifying the request body. Pretty straightforward. Any response is going to come back into the write moments variable. But I'm not doing anything with it right now. I'm just dropping it on the floor because I wanted a really simple implementation. And there's one other change down here that ties everything together. Further down in the project is the HTML code that you see on the screen. And here's the HTML that I added, which ties it all together and allows me to trigger that moment write. I have a hidden field that sets a moment property, or moment post parameter to the value true, just so I know I'm writing a moment. And then a submit button. Dead simple. So let's see it in action.
And so, Jenny, a lot of this code is just kind of part of the boilerplate starter project. You didn't have to completely start from scratch, right?
That is correct.
Yeah.
So what I did is I took the PHP starter project for Google Plus and just added a few lines of code because the history API is just like a lot of the other APIs that we already have for the Google Plus platform.
And so that's awesome. If you're a PHP developer, there's a lot of code that's already out there that we've created to make it a lot easier for you to get started.
Yep, so you only have to add a few lines to use it. So let's see it in action. So I'm hitting the submit button. And we see that it finished to submitting it, and the page reloaded. Because I didn't actually implement any code that shows the success, we're going to have to go look in the Google Plus history. And let's go back. There's actually some little trick I did back there. I actually inserted this moment for a historical thing I did. Because I didn't bake the macaron today, right now. I actually baked it in June in 2010, long before the history API even existed. So here we see that the moment got written. And let me show you how I did that little trick. It's a new feature that we're just starting to support today.
It's awesome, by the way. It's very cool to see that you can kind of get historical data back into your history. So
yes, it's pretty exciting. It's something that we've heard a lot of requests for, and we're starting to support it today. So you can see this one line here that I kind of glossed over before. The moment dot set start, or moment arrow set start date. So if you've been playing with the history API, you may have noticed that when you insert a moment, the response object, when you set the debug flag to true, contains a start date at the root of the moment. Well, you can write to this field now also. So for all those historical moments, for all those moments that happened before your user authenticated your app with Google, or before Google Plus History existed, you can now write using the API so that they can share those historical moments also.
So this will be awesome for all those people who want to bring in all their old data into the history UI. So it's very exciting. Very exciting.
Yes. This is the first feature that we've added in response to all of your requests out there. Cool. So that is what I had to show you today, how easy it is to get started with the PHP and the history API, starting from an existing starter project, and how you can write moments for historical moments that occurred in your application. And that field works for all languages. It's not PHP specific. You can use that for anything. Great.
New stuff.
So this wouldn't be office hours without hanging out and chatting with you guys. So now, what have you guys been up to with the Hangouts API?
I've got a question first about the
excellent
new start date. What happens if you share that historical moment publicly or to somebody else or outside of the history vault?
So sharing moments, the start date doesn't actually impact the sharing of the moments at all. So right now, the way sharing works is you can share individual moments with, you can share it back into your stream by using the little share control on the moment. You can also change the visibility on the Moments tab on the profile by source, which impacts all of the moments that are in there, including historical ones. So if you were to go and you were to dig into that panel and set, for example, set my Baking Disasters app to be visible to everyone on that tab in the profile, then all those historical moments that got inserted would be visible. Does that answer your question?
It answers some of it and raises some more. So if we share it, explicitly share it to the stream, and it will be shared with today's date.
Correct.
Yes.
So the object in the stream is the share itself.
I got a question. So what about the presentation of the event in your stream? Because obviously the way you might present a song that you listen to would be different from a hike that you went on or a recipe that you got from that you baked today. So how is the presentation going to work for people?
It's a great question. So right now we're very focused on getting the right API. The way that you as developers can get all those details into our system, we're very focused on making that easy to use and awesome. We haven't really thought as much about the rest of that part, how those render in the stream, when they're shared, and all that other kind of stuff. This is one reason we're in developer preview now, because we want to focus on getting the developer part really great first. And we are spending a lot of time figuring out what that looks like, but it's too early to say exactly what it will look like. Right now, as you can see, it's pretty simple flat view for all moments that get shared to the stream, with a link referring to the application or the domain that inserted that moment. Did you have anything to add, Garen?
Yeah, no, you answered it, but my question was, so the biggest limitation, in my opinion, for the history API is that you need a public URL to share. So the way I've been working around this is that I construct a URL with query parameters to construct the necessary snippet information for me. But the question is, you have this result field which you allow for some types, and the question is if there couldn't be done more with that sort of information, that you actually put all your information you want to share in this moment into the result and not on a public URL.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And we know that's going to be, having a public URL is a kind of a big limitation. For example, if you're a mobile application developer, you may not have any web infrastructure. And this is feedback we've heard from you guys. We're still working on it. I don't have anything to say about it now. It's going to be cool, and we are definitely thinking about it, and it's something that we know we need to resolve.
Is there a corresponding end date with the start date?
Is there a corresponding end date with the start date? No. So right now there's only one date associated with the moment. I guess because we think of it as a moment in history, like the start of a party versus the entire party. So it's a kind of a single point on the timeline.
Gotcha.
But that's a good point. So can you think of are there use cases you have in mind where you might want to use a start and an end date?
I mean, theoretically, if you have, you're having, say, a honeymoon that lasts over a week, and if you look at a specific day within that week, that honeymoon should probably be listed on that day, even though with the current implementation, if you only implemented the start date, it would only show up on the first day.
That's a really good point. So for longer events, yeah.
Yep. So yeah, definitely for things like if you have a party and the party ends at a certain time, you can create the event, not necessarily for the moment, but maybe some forward-thinking things that I guess we're talking about here. Also, so we just got some questions in from YouTube.
Cool.
And which is kind of a good, nice, gentle way to remind everyone that this is live, and we will try our best to get to them as they come in. So the first question is going to be, and sorry if I'm interrupting your answer here, but are history events signed by the application ID? So can you create moments and then pull them back later to verify their authenticity? For something like, let's say there's an achievement in an app. Or can they just be created by anyone?
It's a good question. So you're asking, I think I understand your question, is, so moments that get inserted are definitely tied back to the application. We haven't thought a lot about making moments cryptographically secure and signed and that kind of stuff, because the user can see those moments, and then the user is the one who shares those moments explicitly with their stream, their users that they care about. We haven't really put a lot of thought into potentially gaming or abusing the system in this kind of way. It's something we'll keep in mind. But we have thought a little bit about kind of getting a feedback loop on moments. Right now, the history API is write-only, and you can use a debug flag to see data coming back, but it's kind of slow. So not much of a feedback loop yet, but this is an interesting idea.
Yep. And so there's another one that is, will I be able to change the people I share the moments with after I post them? So this is actually something that that people have been talking about a good amount lately too, where it's, let's say you have a circle and you want to share with that circle, but you want to authenticate, sorry, not necessarily, not you want to authenticate, but would you be able to just kind of control through circles, like who you share these moments with as they come in?
Mm-hmm. So moments work, when moments are shared to the stream, they work just like any other post that you make to Google+. So you can't change the security settings on the post itself. But changing downstream, like changing the members of the circle, can impact the visibility of that post.
Cool. Ooh, we got some more.
Great. So before we dive into those,
okay.
If you're watching on YouTube or on the Google Plus page, you can ask questions in either location. We're watching both. Yep. But yeah, feel free to ask your question at either location. We'll keep an eye out for it.
Yeah.
What method are you using to watch both? Are you using the comment tracker, or you got something?
We want to be using comment tracker, but it's neither. Actually, it's just kind of me clicking as fast as I can. So there's another question. Can the user ignore moments from the same app or reduce the frequency on a per app basis? I guess someone's asking, will Google aggregate moments for people from apps?
Another
interesting idea.
Interesting idea. So I guess one of the cases you might be worried about is, say there's an application that produces a lot of moments. So like, as you're hiking, you're running, so you're passing a lot of landmarks, and our theoretical hiking application might be writing tens, hundreds of moments to your history, and we want to make sure the interface stays useful. This is something we care a lot about. I don't really have much to say on how it works right now, or how it's going to work. Right now, moments of the same type, the same action, so an add activity or a watch activity or view activity they'll aggregate based on that, but we're putting a lot of thought into other kinds of aggregations we can do to make sure that interface stays useful no matter how you're using it and no matter how application developers are using the History API.
Yeah, I noticed you're actually also aggregating based on the time frame. So when I'm using Song Track MC, I've been listening to music from 10 to 12. I've been listening to those songs. And then later when I started again, I've been listening to other songs from 3 to 5, even if there's no other activity in between. So actually have some time frames in there as well in the aggregation, at least from what I've seen.
Yes, we are also right now balling them together a little bit by time. So if they occur in a cluster, you'll also see them kind of compressed into that cluster. Just to make sure that, your different sessions, like, so if you go on one hike and then you drive across town and go on another, those would still be usable separately. But these are just the beginning. If you have other ideas out there of how you want to see these interfaces work, please send us this feedback. This is a really great opportunity for all of you developers out there because, developer previews, that's what this is about. It's about us getting your feedback while you get to bang on it in real time.
Yep.
So I got a question. Can we use a start date in the future? So can we predate moments? Or do you catch this in the API? Just curious.
Future moments. I'm thinking of all the potential for that. I see potential for trouble. It is intended.
I'm just wondering if you allow it at the moment, if it's possible.
I haven't actually tried it. We probably shouldn't allow it. So I'll be trying it right after this to find out what happens.
I can see applications for having events in the future. So
Yeah, I mean, isn't that the events?
Well, now I have an alarm.
Yeah.
I can now use it as an alarm system.
That's interesting.
For my future history.
But if your cell phone dies and your alarm never goes off, hasn't that moment like a lie then?
Well, then I could use it as a dead man's switch. That if I don't kill the moment at some point in the future, everyone's going to know that I'm not killing them.
But you can still say that you were reminded in the future, whether or not you actually got that reminder. And then after now, then it becomes history. But at least the system tried to remind you.
Yeah.
I'll be trying to wrap my head around that one. It's definitely an interesting case.
So we have some. This is all the moments in the future. But actually, there's some more questions coming in on YouTube. A lot of them are around grouping, and one of them is: will I be able to assign moments with a marker ID and have them collated on the user side as a single story? And then kind of related is, if I can specify some sort of group ID from the context of my application, that could be a useful point of aggregation. So it sounds like there's interest in giving hints to the history API around that moments could be aggregated. This sounds to me actually like really good input, but I do not know of any kind of automatic way that Google's currently doing that on our side. Jenny?
Right. So this is a really cool idea. I like this one a lot. Keep the stuff coming.
Yeah, keep it coming.
Right now, one way you can kind of hint to us that something similar is going on is if that target URL, going back yet again to that hiking application, if that hiking application was tracking my progress through a hike, I may be targeting that same hike page over and over and over again as I move along. That's an example of one kind of hint that exists right now, but giving other hints to us about the kind of cohesiveness of activities is a really, really cool idea, and we will definitely bubble that up. And
very cool. Yeah, I can definitely see how the how the micro format stuff would kind of start to build up on top of the page, and you could actually start using, as you described, kind of all of this stuff added onto, I guess, the larger story, to use the words from Emily in YouTube. And it's an interesting idea.
Very cool. Cool. So, any other questions on the stream or in the channel or in the Hangout?
We'll try to keep looking, but I'm not seeing on the event right now. And it looks like we've gotten through most of them.
Is there any word on the bug involving scope conflicts being fixed yet?
Is there any word on the scope? So right now, the issue that you're mentioning is that the history API only works with plus.me and history right now. You can't use any other scopes, which kind of limits your ability to use this API with, for example, Google Drive, for example, or other ones. There is a workaround. It's not the prettiest workaround. What you can do is you can send the user through 2 authentication flows and make those API calls separately through different instances of the client libraries. I realize this is a really cumbersome workaround. We're working on a solution. It's one of those things that's, we want to make sure we get right, and we are actively working on it.
Yeah.
But that's all I can say right now.
No current change in status, basically.
There is no current change in status. I have my eye on that open issue. So if you want to learn when this issue updates, you can go into our public issue tracker, which I'll link in the show notes, and you can star any issues that are relevant to you, and you'll be notified when we update them, when we fix those problems, or when we have other news to report. So that's the best way to stay up to date on these things.
Cool. So it looks like the questions are trickling down a little bit.
Well, great stuff so far.
Yeah, really great stuff. Thank you, everyone who asked questions in the YouTube comments. It's always exciting to hear what people are interested in doing. So,
yeah. Are any other questions or comments from the Hangout?
It may shock you and surprise you, but I'm actually running out of things I need to ask for anymore.
Wow.
Yeah. We're getting to the point now where anything we can imagine, we're actually able to do. So I'm. So now I guess all the onus is back on me.
So write awesome stuff and tell us what we're doing wrong to make that hard, and we'll fix it and make it easy, and then you can do more awesome. If that made any sense.
Yeah.
More awesome. That's
more
the important
awesome
part.
always makes sense.
Great.
Because everything must constantly be getting more awesomer.
More awesomer is better.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you probably can't tell us, but is there any estimated time frame on when the Google Play services for the mobile Android Google Plus platform will be available? Because they've been announced for quite a while now.
That's actually information that I do not know. I'm very excited about it. So if I knew, I probably wouldn't be able to tell you.
Yeah.
But I don't actually know. But I'm eagerly awaiting it, just like you. It's going to be pretty awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, because I think the history API for mobile, it's a huge use case. Because if you say you're on a hike, then you want your geolocation from your phone, so you would need it on your phone to work.
Yeah, it's definitely like the mobile scenarios are huge for it, and the kind of things that you can get from there are important. But I believe the server side flow could enable certain mobile scenarios. Is that right, Jenny?
It could potentially.
Yeah.
So if your user's already authenticated server side, you can use your mobile application interfaced with your server side software to then write the moments from server side. Or if your user is authenticated even device side, you could even send them the moments from the mobile device using the same REST APIs. It's just not as clean as it should be.
Yeah.
But
yep. So there aren't exactly the mobile starters right now, or that they're not necessarily working yet. But yeah, it's completely possible to implement it with the REST APIs or doing it server side.
Yeah. So in other words, we're also very excited about it.
Yes.
Great.
I know you don't like to talk about availability, but do you know if and when people will be able to connect to a Hangout on Air using a mobile device?
Connect to a Hangout on Air from a mobile device. That's something I definitely do not know.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
it's not permitted right now. It fails if you attempt to connect with a mobile device. But you can imagine. I mean, you want to report on a riot, you send a person out with their iPhone into a crowd, and they can be reporting on the scene. Right now, it's not possible.
That would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
The related question is any word on if and when the Hangout API will be available on mobile devices?
Again, that would be really cool. No idea when.
Yeah.
Yes, but we will have having more Hangout office hours coming up with cool Hangout stuff.
Yep.
Not that though. Cool. So, any other wants or needs before we wrap up, or any other questions on the from the rest of the developer community?
So there is one for moments in history.
Awesome.
If I could define my own unique ID for history, could I correct that moment later? So can you make changes without collation happening?
This is a great question. Right now, we have something similar to an ID. Certain moments that are written to the history have a result attribute. Those results refer to a URL, in addition to the target URL. So a case of this would be, for example, I comment on a blog entry. The target of that moment is the blog entry, but that comment also exists. What if that comment changes? What you can do right now is you can resubmit the same moment, and as long as the result URL for that comment is the same, you can update the values in that moment. And we're researching other ways that we can support updating existing moments. For example, by allowing you to submit your own ID, or maybe using IDs on our side that we return. This is stuff that I've seen a lot of discussion about on threads, and I've actually talked a little bit about it on some Google Plus threads. So, yes, we're thinking about it. We're still kicking it around. Right now, you can do it for moments that have a result by their URL. Maybe more later, but we're still researching it out.
Cool.
Yeah. See, we're thinking alike out there, all of you developers and us.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear we're on the same page. So keep the feedback coming. It's working really well. Great. So if there are no other questions here, I guess we will wrap it up for the day. So we got a ton of great feedback today. And please keep it coming. You can do it outside of the office hours too. You can find us on Google+. We have a Plus page, which you may be watching this video from right now, Google Plus Developers on Google+. We watch Stack Overflow on the Google Plus tag. We have an official forum, even a chat room. Feel free to reach out to us via whatever channel you're comfortable with and talk to us about your experiences with the History API and how you think we can make it better. And if you're just getting started, I'm going to be posting all of the code and all links to all the other material in the show notes, as well as some links to some videos that go into the History API in a little bit more detail that we either previously covered or that we talked about at Google I/O. So check the notes at the end of the show, and you'll see everything you need to get started there.
Yep. And you can also find the latest documentation on developers.google.com/plus. The symbol, not the spelling, not the spelled out version. So,
correct. Yeah. Great. So thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks so much for watching, and thanks so much for the great questions and feedback. And we'll be seeing you next week on the next session of the Google Plus Platform Office Hours.
Whee!
Bye.